You are listening to Realign Your Life Podcast, where I discuss with you strategies on how to realign your life and move towards the direction you always want to. I am Vivian, the host of this podcast, and every week I will bring value on how to improve and realign your life either through a guest or my thoughts. I can't wait to share what we have this week. It's time to realign your life. Well. Welcome back. Welcome back to Realign Your Podcast. This is Vivian, the host of this show, and I am so excited to have you to join us today for this episode. Just as I've always promised you, that I will give you my thoughts on what it takes to realign our lives and to move towards that goal or those values and to embrace them the way that you always want to. And I also promised you that I would bring on some guests. So we are so blessed tonight or today to have with us a good friend that I just met, and her name is Miss Irish Benton. Welcome, Iris. Welcome to Realign Your Life Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Vivian, and it is a pleasure to meet you on tonight.
Yes, it is. I tell you, Irish has a story, her story that she is going to share with you and share with us on how she has walked through realigning her life. And, sometimes that's not a very easy thing to do. But, we've talked about coaches and mentors. And Iris has that background also. She is a licensed life coach. She's also a Christian counselor. And she's done a lot of other things. She also has a day job, y'all. But once again, it's all about realigning our lives and being able to come up with those multiple strands of income. So Iris is a native North Carolinian. She lives right up the street in Concord, North Carolina. And she tells me, this is what she tells me, y'all. She does not come to Charlotte unless she absolutely positively have to. Because this is the big metropolitans around that Cabarrus County area. So, Iris, I'm just so glad that you didn't have to travel too far today and that you are just going to share your heart with us. So tell us a little bit, let our listening audience know a little bit about your background, where you hail from.
Well, hello, listeners. But Miss Vivian, you did not have to put my fear out there like that about Charlotte. You put my business out there like that. But hello, listeners and viewers. It's so good to be with you all on tonight. So yes, I am author Irish J Benton, and thank you so much for the wonderful and warm introduction, Vivian. I'm here tonight because I wanted to just share with your viewers about my life's journey and how my life had to get realigned. Of course, when I think about alignment, I think about being out of alignment. Think about our tires, when you go and have to get your vehicle aligned. Ladies, we had to learn that, right? Because men have always been the ones to take care of the vehicles, and we didn't know what that means. But, when you're driving a vehicle and it's just wobbling and you're saying, I know something's wrong with the car because it's not rearing right. It's out of alignment, right? And so we have to go and get those tires checked and get them put on right. They have to do something special to get those tires to track. That's it. They have to get on track so that when we're on that road and on that pavement, that they are properly able to handle the road. And so that's what our life is. We have to get aligned to be able to properly travel the road of life. And so, my background is, she gave you guys all of these accolades. She's a life coach and she's a Christian counselor and she has a full-time job. And you're probably thinking, well, why is she here? And how does her, what does she have to say to me? Well, I have a lot to say to you because I wasn't always this person. I wasn't always this wonderful, aligned woman. And even with that, I still have days where I have to ask God to keep me lined up. I don't have a perfect life. None of us do. But that's where we have to stay in prayer and we have to stay in a word. And without that, we can deter and we can be distracted and our trajectory can change because that's what the enemy will do. So staying in prayer and staying in the word of God is what keeps us in alignment and keeps us in that path. So I'm here tonight because I'm a woman that comes from trauma. I come from a background of domestic violence. And just what is that? I come from a background of domestic violence with partners, men that I was in love with, men that I shared homes with, men that I shared relationships with, men that I shared my heart with, men that I shared children with, my life. And it turned violent. That's what domestic violence is for those of you that may not know what it is. A lot of people aren't familiar with that. And a lot of times when people hear the word violence, they just think of the physical aspects of it, but it's so much broader than that. It could be verbal, it could be mental, it could be financial, it could be sexual. It's just so many things that comes under that violent umbrella. But I was that woman under that umbrella of all of those things. And so
Irish, tell us this. So you were under that umbrella of all of these things.
Yes.
But what drove you there? What was it that drove you there? So now we know that if we're in those kind of situations, there's something out of whack there.
Well, I don't know if it's something that drove me there. I think it's that you just find yourself there. And let me explain that to you. You don't really find that out until after you've come out of it. So I find myself in these relationships because here's the reality, Vivian. When you meet people, you don't meet an abuser. You meet a nice guy. You meet a gentleman. You don't meet the abuser until the abuse happens. Does that make sense? So nobody meets an abuser. Because if we met an abuser, you wouldn't be in the situation. So let me explain that. So if I met someone today and he just had the demeanor of an abuser, saying, he starts verbally abusing me upon contact meeting him, or if he starts physically hitting me, that's not how we meet people. We meet people in their pretentious form. Absolutely. We meet people in their pretentious form. So everybody, that's it, with the mask on. And so that's the charmer.
Yes.
So everybody knows the behavior that it takes to win somebody over. So you don't just, drive yourself into that. You find yourself in that. So that's the honest thing about that. And so I just ended up meeting someone who wore a mask, who was obviously an abuser from previous relationships. And here's the thing, probably had childhood issues, had past issues that were unresolved. And during the time that I met them, they just carried over into our relationship. Yeah. So unfortunately, I married an abuser. Now, when I met him, as I just explained, he was a charmer. He was nice. And so a year into our marriage is when the abuse would be exposed. It would just take a trigger. Triggers, a lot of terms that we use in domestic violence, triggers and red flags. So the first red flag is me finding something in his phone or me saying something that he didn't agree with. And then if he didn't agree with something, he would say something that was belittling me. And then if it was me finding something in his phone, he was gaslighting me. So all of these terms, gaslighting, red flags, triggering.
So Irish, people may not understand what those terms mean. So what is gaslighting? When you say gaslighting.
So gaslighting means, so whenever I would find something, so let's just go a little further. So while I was married and my husband was having these secret affairs, and I would find, let's just say, a text message. And he would say, oh, that's just a friend of mine from a job, or that's just somebody, and he was a car salesman, by the way, or that's just somebody that bought a car and I'm just checking on her. And you're just assuming, or you're just overreacting. So that's the part of being gaslighted in terms of saying what you're seeing is not what you're seeing. Okay. What you're seeing is you're overreacting, or it's not really there. That's gaslighting.
Okay, and I think that's very important for those that are out here listening today, because I don't know, there may be somebody that's out there that's going through this very thing right now and not aware of what it is, and that's why what you're sharing with us is so important.
Yeah. So in terms of women, I love the gift that God gave every woman, which is the gift of intuition, right? So a woman will always feel something in her gut before it's even exposed. You know something's not quite right, or you know something's off. So when it is so if you mention it, before it's exposed, they'll say, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're overthinking. It's not what you think. But when it's exposed, it really was what you thought. So that's a form of gaslighting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically gaslighting, if you look the term up, they will make you think that what you thought was crazy, or basically that you're crazy, right? So I experienced a lot of that. And again, as I'm mentioning this, Vivian, we talked about all of these things under the umbrella that will start messing with your mental capacity, because you will begin to think you're crazy.
I am. Maybe it is something off here.
Maybe I didn't see the picture, or maybe I did read the text message, or, maybe he is right about what I think or what I feel or what I see. Right. That's what. So beyond all of that, I was a woman that endured domestic violence for about 15 years of my life. Wow. And in this 15 years, I had 2 small children. So let's not forget that my children grew up in a household with all of these things happening. So they were affected by this as well. Yeah. So a lot of people tend to forget that domestic violence affects everybody. It doesn't just affect the 2 adults, but it affects the children. And people aren't aware of this, Vivian, but if you have pets can also detect or be affected by domestic violence. Wow. So everybody's affected by it. So I found my way into this toxic relationship. And here's the thing, one of the biggest questions people want to know is, well, why do you stay? And so there is no one answer. There is no one answer, like there is no one diagnosis for one illness. Everybody has an illness. There's all kinds of diagnoses. There's all types of medications. And I'm going somewhere with this because all of this is an illness, but it will take a different diagnosis and a different medication for everybody. Right. So why did I stay? Number one, I had 2 small children. Number 2, I didn't have the education that I have now. Number 3, I didn't have the income that I have now. I was in public housing. So it wasn't like I could just pack up and go. And honestly, while I was it was called Section 8, and I don't even know if they still have that now.
Yes, they do.
I was getting assistance from the government. So, and then when you're married, so here's the thing, when you're married, there's so much red tape that you don't just get to, pack up and leave. There's just red tapes that you have to go through, right? So I just didn't have the means to just leave. Now, that was just my reasoning for not leaving at the time, because the abuse was consistent. It became more intense. And I just stayed for a number of years. And I want to share this with you all too. So within the 15 years of staying and going through the trauma year after year, and then he began to have more affairs, and then children began being born in the affairs. So I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. Now I've lost my entire identity. I don't even know who I am anymore. Like physically, I know I'm here. I know my name is Irish. But my true identity. So here we go. Who God had called me to be.
Yeah. The enemy.
When he said, I knew you before you were formed and before I put you, I lost all of that. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know I had a calling on my life. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I just thought I was just a wife going through what I was going through. I had 2 children, and I thought that was normal. So here's what happens.
So let me ask you this. When you said you thought this was normal,
yes,
is that because this is what you saw other couples do, or had you been educated, or what? Did you grow up like this? Is this what you saw in your own household? Or so share with us what made you think that this was normal.
Yeah. So good question. I did witness domestic violence in my household as a teenage girl. And of course, my mother stayed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's what most women did.
Yeah, most women say. So my mother stayed, and my mother stayed because he was a good provider. He was an abuser, but he was a good provider. But the reality is, Vivian, the longer you stay in dysfunction, it becomes functional.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So now it becomes your norm. It becomes familiar. It becomes your acceptance. It becomes tolerated. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. So it's all dysfunctional, but we've now become a dysfunctional functioning family.
Because it's your norm. It's now your norm.
It's now your norm. Yes, ma'am. And so for those that are listening, and for those that may know somebody currently from the outside looking into a domestic violence situation, this is exactly what it is. They are functioning in a dysfunctional lifestyle, toxic lifestyle. Yeah. So prime example, we know you've heard of people that do drugs. You know of people that drink alcohol. We know them to be alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
We see it as dysfunctional, and we see what it does to their bodies, whether it's alcohol or whether it's drugs, and they do it every single day. We see the deterioration of the body, what it's doing to them. We see this. It's the same thing with toxic relationships, because alcohol is toxic, drugs is toxic. It's on the same level. It's on the same level.
It's almost like it's an addiction.
It's an addiction. There you got it. You got it. You got it. You got it.
Lifestyle.
You got it. You got it.
And a lot of times we go, and I think you mentioned it at the top of your conversation, we go from one relationship to another relationship to another relationship.
Yeah.
With that same baggage, because we haven't addressed it yet.
Yes. And that's because you haven't healed, and it's so much work that has to be done in it. Yeah, it's so much done. And that's why I wrote my book, Vivian, So You Survived the Toxic Relationships. Congratulations. Now what? You survived it. Now what? It's just like the reason why I wrote this book is because it's just like somebody that's been in prison for half their life. You've learned the prison system. That's all you know. The prison system, daily routine. So you come out into the reality, the real world. Now what? You're no longer in a prison system. You've got to learn the world.
How to deal
the world
with
is what we know is ever evolving. The world is evolved. People that have been in a prison system for 10 or 15 years and they come out and technology has changed. You've got to learn to evolve and adapt to the new world. So I asked the question, now what? So you survived it. So what happens is if you don't adapt and learn the new abilities, you will go back
into that
to what's familiar out of being afraid, out of fear.
Yes.
And that's what happens. That's what happens.
So what moved you or what motivated you to do something differently? How did you come out of prison? And
it's really simple. And I always revert back to this. If anybody saw the movie, and it is the simplest thing is enough. Jennifer Lopez starred in a movie called Enough. Mm-hmm. And if you've ever seen Enough, she walked into that prime example of what I said. I didn't find it. I didn't find myself. I didn't drive myself into that. I found myself into it. If y'all have never seen the movie, it's a very old movie, but Enough with Jennifer Lopez. She met this man. He was very charming, but we're not going to talk about the movie, but I want you all to see it so that you can see how this works.
Yeah.
And he was an abuser. He was an atrocious abuser. And so she had to learn to fight back. She had to learn his tactics. She had to learn his game. And it was enough. And so for me...
Did you see that movie before?
I had not seen the movie. Okay. I had not seen the movie before. No. Okay. So how did I get out in 2014 was your question. How did I get out? Mm-hmm. I had come to my enough point. I was tired of living that dysfunctional life. I was tired of living the toxicity. You know, if you keep drinking poison, in fact, some poison, it will kill you. And unfortunately, when we talk about domestic violence, the statistics show us that every single day in our country, the United States of America, 3 women or more are dying every single day by the hands of an abuser. And unfortunately, guns are the number one weapons being used to murder victims. But this is every single day. Yeah. So toxicity, poison will kill you. Wow. And so I had come to my enough point, and I told God, I didn't want to live that way anymore. And so I don't want to jump the gun on you. I know you have another question, but you really have to pause, and you really have to say and ask yourself, is this what God created me for? See, we were created by the Creator for His glory and for His purpose, and that's scripture. So if God created me for His glory and His purpose, why would He have a will and a desire for me to be in an abusive, toxic relationship? It's not His will. It's not His desire.
So were you in church, or were you in a spiritual environment in all of this time?
Absolutely.
During these 15 years?
Absolutely. I was reared in the church. Absolutely. Have a spiritual background. And that's another thing.
So the church doesn't speak on this, though. So did you get this from the church? Did the church know that you were a hurting woman? So to answer that in all truth, yes. And a part of that is, a lot of that is my fault, but let me say this to sum it all up. I had informed my pastor then about the abuse, but during this time, because this was in the early, my abuse started in around 1999, between 1998 and 1999. So the church then, and I will just say my church, I'm not going to say every church because I don't know. I don't think the church had enough information on how to handle domestic violence cases. Mm-hmm. The church had information on prayer. The church had scripture and not enough resources in terms of resources for women and children and resources for batterers. You understand what I'm saying? Well, so I do to a point. Understand that. However, it is scriptural where I think Jesus addressed the issue of divorce, where at one point during the Old Testament days, and even during New Testament times, that men were just putting women aside for any reason. You know, you don't look good, so I'll divorce you. I'll just get rid of you. But it was because of their sinful nature. So, but my question to you was that during your time in the church and being a part of a body, how were you supported? Because you said you reached a point of your enough. So when you got to your enough, was that inner intuition that you were speaking about?
That was my inner intuition. So I didn't have then, because I have to be fair and honest about this. Mm-hmm. I did not have a strong support system from the church then. And I want to encourage people to know that that is changing. Yes. As an advocate against domestic violence, we are now being more welcomed in the church than we've ever been before. The information is now forefront in the church. So there are more resources available now than ever. So there's no excuses for people not to have it. So that's why I gave the actual year when this was happening, where I don't think that at least it wasn't given to me. The only thing that was given to me was prayer and the encouragement to pray about it and to work this out with your husband. So there was no, let me recommend you and your children to go to a women's shelter for a couple of nights, or let me recommend you to seek counseling with a women's group or a support group. You understand what I'm saying? But now we have more, listen, across this nation, there is no reason for a victim not to be able to reach someone. We have advocates. We have hotlines. We have shelters. There's so many things in place now that my wish and with everything that I know, no one should be dying. No one should be alone. No one should not have anyone that they cannot reach out to say, hey, I need help.
Yes. So once you had your enough, do you have an escape plan? Because you talked about earlier how you didn't have the education, you didn't have the finances.
Yeah.
Those type of things, those tangible things that resources that you needed.
Yeah.
So what was your escape?
So my escape during the time that I came out of my exodus was in 2014. My children are now grown. They are now out on their own. Everybody has graduated from high school and living their own lives. My last abuser and I separated in 2014. And my escape was me looking up to heaven after having my last altercation with him and saying, God, I opened my mouth. So my escape was me opening my mouth and saying, Lord God, and I remember this, if you deliver me from this man today, I promise you that I will do exactly what you would ask of me. I will go where you would ask me to go. I will say what you would have me to say. And from that day on, I have written, from those last words, I will say what you would have me to say. I have written 4 books.
Wow.
I have been speaking ever since I wrote my first book in 2015, and it released in 2016 called Breaking His Silence. And I wrote my story. I told my first story of surviving domestic violence. And I never looked back, Vivian. From 2014, here it is, 2023, I have been domestic violence free.
That's beautiful.
And that was my escape. And mine was opening up you have not because you ask not. That's scripture. We have not because we ask not. And I had to, because a lot of times we want to figure things out ourselves. And we think that we have the power within us to do it. But what I try to tell people, and I tell people, if you had the power to do it, you wouldn't be in it.
So, Irish, there are women, and you are strong. I see that you have a very, very strong faith. And for me, that's really important. That's important. Women that are not quite there, that do not know about your God, what would you say to them? Or how do you help a woman or anybody that's in that abusive, in an abusive relationship to move on?
Yeah. So the first thing you asked, you said, my God. You said, for someone who does not know my God.
Yes.
My suggestion would be, I would begin in prayer for Jean's or Irish's God. I heard her on Realign Your Life, Realigning Your Life. And so I want to know Irish's God. So I'm on my knees and I'm praying and I'm asking you to reveal yourself to me, make yourself available to me, speak to me. This is the same God of Jacob, Abraham, and Isaac. He is the same God of Israel. He is the true and living God. He is the God of Genesis to Revelation. This is the same God that I'm talking about. So if you want to know Irish's God, I would suggest that you fall to your knees, lay prostrate, however you pray. If you've never prayed, you can just be riding in your car. You could be sitting wherever you are right now. I would just ask that you would just open up your mouth and say, Irish's God, reveal yourself to me, speak to me, because the same thing that you've done for her, I'm needing you to do in my life.
And that's wonderful. And that's great. And I would say that. However, we do have people out there that are in these domestic violence situations, all of the killing that's going on in our community right now. There is a spirit there.
Yes.
There is a spirit there that has to be broken.
Yes.
If you're not in that place. And so, well, one thing that I would say for those that are listening today, that you would share this episode, And that's why it's so important, because there are people that do not have that strong will or that strong ability like you do. And of course, you were already centered in church.
Yes.
You know, doing all of it.
Yeah.
So once you came out, did you have to go? Did you actually go into a shelter? Or
I did not, but I had to go to counseling. So one of the things you asked me, what would I tell them? That was one. Seek God, because without God, it's impossible. I don't care who you are, how you try to do it. We can't. I know we're all on different levels in our lives, but we cannot do it without him. Number two, seek out to a local domestic violence shelter or organization. Not so much as a shelter, because those are primarily used for people that are looking for a safe place. But I would seek a domestic violence organization in your county. They're all over the United States. In the state of North Carolina, Vivian, there is the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence website. So it's going to be North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence website. You can go there and they have a listing in every county. You can find your county there, and you can find a service where you can call someone and talk to someone. There's also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and I do believe it's 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-SAFE, and they have someone available 24/7 that you can talk to. So there are all kinds of avenues. It's not just someone to talk to. Now, the good thing about this is I'm an advocate. So you can reach out to me. I'm on via Facebook. I'm Irish J Benton. Inbox me. You can inbox me and say, hey, I heard you on Realigning Your Life podcast. I have a question, or I just need someone to talk to. It is confidential. Or you can email me at jeanbenton70@gmail.com. Set up a free 30-minute consultation with me. Free 30-minute consultation with me, and we can find out what services you need. We can find out if you need an escape plan. We can find out if you need shelter. We can find out if you just need someone to talk to. We can find out where you are and what you need. That's what it's about.
And
where you are and what your needs are.
And when it's time to move on.
And that's where we will find out where you are, what your needs are. Because sometimes it could just be just needing someone to talk to. But when it's time to move on, that means it's critical. It could be some critical things going on. And,
especially if there are children involved also. Yes.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, and especially if there are children involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm so excited about all of this information that you are sharing with us and with the listeners out here, because it's necessary information. And it is always someone out there that needs this and has missed it. It's just like sharing the gospel. Everybody's not saved yet. So we have to continue in doing it. And as we were talking right before we came on, we talked about the Great Commission. It is about loving God and loving others and being able to share what you have. So you've gone through this experience. You went through it, and it was a pretty tough experience, I would gather to say. However, now look at what you're doing.
Yes.
You are out here helping someone else. And 4 books.
4 books. And I'm in the process of writing book 5, but now I'm writing a book on dating. I did a series this year for 19 weeks. Well, it started in December, on teaching how to properly date and what to look for in dating. See, a lot of us don't know how to date and what to look for in dating, right? And how to prevent going back into toxic relationships. So I'm getting ready to write that book, and then I'm getting ready to do an anthology with my Christian counseling peers, again, on coming out of toxic relationships. And what I love about this for everybody, this listening, is that whether you're in a toxic relationship or a domestic violence relationship now, if you're here, you're not here by accident. You were divinely guided to be here tonight. You were divinely guided to be here tonight because God has an escape route for you. And when he delivers you from this, you're going to then be able to heal. And then you're going to have a story, and your story is going to be able to help somebody else. You see what I'm saying? We're always, hey, you know what we are? We are modern day Harriet Tubmans. That's what we are.
We are each other's keepers.
We are
each other keepers. Well, I know we got to wind this down. This is so good. I hate to stop. You have shared so much good stuff for us. But one of the things that you did mention, and I hope all of you out there listening caught this, she is offering a 30-minute free consultation. A free consultation. And of course, she's got all of these books out here. So Irish, would you go over again how our listening audience can contact you, email address, and your phone number, or how they set up to do this free consultation?
Yes. So the email is the best form to contact me. I do not give out my personal number unless we make contact. So the best way to contact me is going to be my email, and that is Jean, Jean Benton, Benton 70@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Irish J Benton. You can inbox me. I do check those. And I'm also on Instagram at Jean Benton 70. You can DM me there. And I'm also now new to TikTok. So for all of you TikTokers, if you're over there, I think I'm Irish Benton 70. And you can DM me there. So I'm available. You can find me. I'm all over the place. So there's no excuse for you not to be able to reach me. And also, you can reach me through Miss Vivian if you have a relationship with her, if you feel safe with her, and you want to reach me, please reach out to her and get my information, because what we want to do is, this is a winning season. This is our winning season in our saving season. God wants to save you. And I am a testimony. I'm a living testimony. A woman who had endured it for 15 years. A woman who lost her identity, self-identity, lost her self-esteem, who was clueless about who she was because I became something the abuser created.
So, Irish, share with us, share 3 things that you would want this listening audience to walk away with this evening.
1, I want you to walk away with your confidence in who God created and wants you to be. Number 3, I want you to know that you are loved. You are perfect just the way you are. And number 3, you are wanted and you are needed. You are wanted and you are needed.
Yes.
That's what I want you to walk away with.
I am so glad that you said that, because in every one of these podcasts and realigning our lives, everyone has a story.
Yes.
And your story is important. Everyone is gifted. Everyone has a special gift that God has given them. And nobody can do it but you.
Nobody can do it but you.
Whatever it is needed. So I want to thank everybody for joining in tonight. And I do pray that you have taken in and taken to heart what Iris has shared her heart and poured her heart out to us. And you can just see her, you can see and you can feel her passion about this. So you have her information, you know how to contact her. And once again, if you have enjoyed this podcast and you know of someone that could use this information, make sure that you share it with them. And in the meantime, take care of yourself and peace. I hope you enjoyed this episode. The best gift that you could give me is to share this podcast with family and friends. And don't forget to review it. That way, this podcast will grow organically. If you need to reach out to me, please check out my Facebook page, DM me there, or you can email me at godskow@gmail.com. We have upcoming Bible studies that we would love for you to join us in, or if there is a guest or someone that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, please let me know. We are here to work together to realign our lives. Until the next episode, take care, and I look forward to sharing more and more with you as we realign our lives. Peace until next week.